The day my son told me I embarrassed him still burns in my memory. After 30 years of sacrificing everything, working 2 jobs to put him through college, he chose his mother-in-law to walk with him at graduation. "Mom, you embarrass me," he whispered when I asked about my seat. His words cut deeper than any knife. I stood frozen in the back of the auditorium, watching as they walked arm in arm to the front row while everyone clapped. Then the dean called my name to the stage. My name is Cher, and at 68 years old, I thought I had experienced all the heartbreak life could offer. I spent most of my adult life as a nurse at County General Hospital, retiring just 4 years ago after decades of service. But no amount of witnessing human suffering prepared me for the pain of my own son's rejection. I raised Tyler alone, after his father James walked out when Tyler was just 5 years old. James decided family life was too restrictive and left us with little more than a hastily scribbled note and $300 in our checking account. I remember sitting on the kitchen floor that night, Tyler asleep upstairs, wondering how I would possibly manage on my own. The next morning, I picked myself up, called my supervisor at the hospital, and asked for extra shifts. For the next 15 years, I worked a combination of day shifts, night shifts, and weekend rotations that left me perpetually exhausted but able to keep a roof over our heads. During school holidays, when childcare was impossible to find, I'd sometimes bring Tyler to the hospital break room, where the other nurses would take turns checking on him while he did his homework. "Why don't we have a big house like Jake's family?" Tyler asked me once, when he was around 10. His friend Jake lived in one of those new subdivisions with a swimming pool and 3-car garage. "We have something different," I told him, trying to mask the hurt I felt. "We have each other and everything we need." But I saw it then, that flicker of shame in his eyes that would eventually grow into something much worse. Tyler was brilliant from the start, reading before kindergarten and skipping ahead in math. His teachers constantly told me he was gifted, that he could go far with the right education. I pinned all my hopes on him getting scholarships to college. To help his chances, I scrimped and saved for any extracurricular activities that might boost his college applications. I sold my mother's antique silverware to pay for his science camp one summer. My wedding ring funded his SAT prep course. Every heirloom and valuable I owned gradually disappeared to ensure Tyler had the best opportunities. When Tyler got into State University with a partial scholarship, I was ecstatic. The scholarship covered tuition, but not room and board or books. I picked up a weekend job at a 24-hour pharmacy to cover the difference, often working 16-hour days between both jobs. During his junior year at college, Tyler met Abigail. The first time he brought her home to our modest 2-bedroom apartment, I could sense her discomfort. She kept looking around with barely concealed judgment, asking questions like, "So you've lived here the whole time Tyler was growing up?" Tyler jumped in before I could answer. "Just temporarily. Mom's looking at condos downtown, right, Mom?" It was the first I'd heard of such plans, but I nodded, not wanting to embarrass him. Abigail came from money. Old money, as they say. Her father was a corporate attorney, and her mother, Patricia, didn't work, instead chairing various charity committees and country club events. When Tyler first took me to meet them at their sprawling home in the expensive part of town, Patricia looked me up and down with a tight smile. "Nursing is such valuable work," she said, emphasizing valuable in a way that clearly meant the opposite, though I imagine the hours must be dreadful. "Is that why you haven't had time to finish your bachelor's degree?" I didn't tell her that I actually had my bachelor's in nursing, earned through night classes when Tyler was in middle school. Something told me that sharing this information wouldn't change her assessment of me. As Tyler and Abigail's relationship progressed, I noticed my son changing. He started using phrases that sounded nothing like him, talking about summer homes and investment portfolios as if he'd grown up with them. He commented on my clothes, suggesting I might want to update my look before meeting more of Abigail's family. When Tyler called to tell me they were engaged after dating for 2 years, I was happy for him, but concerned about the growing distance between us. I offered to help with wedding plans, setting aside a portion of my retirement savings to contribute. "That's sweet, Mom," Tyler said. "But Patricia has connections with all the best vendors. She's going to handle everything." I found out they'd had 3 wedding planning meetings before I was invited to one. When I finally joined them at an upscale bridal boutique, Patricia had already selected the color scheme, venue, and menu. "We thought burgundy and gold would be elegant for a fall wedding," Patricia announced, not bothering to ask my opinion. "Tyler always loved blue," I mentioned softly. "It was his favorite color growing up." Patricia dismissed this with a wave of her hand. "Burgundy photographs better. The wedding photographer is a close friend of ours and advised against blue." I looked to Tyler for support, but he was nodding along with Patricia. "Mom, they know about these things," he said. That was the moment I realized I'd lost my place as the primary person in my son's life. The woman who'd never missed a single parent-teacher conference or baseball game was being sidelined by someone who'd known him for less than 3 years. It hurt more than I could express. The day before the wedding rehearsal, I got a call from Tyler that made my stomach drop. "Mom," Patricia had to rearrange some of the seating for the rehearsal dinner. "You'll be at table 6 now." Table 6 turned out to be at the very back of the restaurant, with distant cousins and work acquaintances. The family table up front had an empty seat, but when I mentioned it to Tyler, he looked uncomfortable. "That's for the photographer, Mom. He needs to be close to capture all the important moments." I swallowed my hurt and smiled, determined not to cause problems before his big day. During the rehearsal dinner, I overheard Patricia talking to one of her friends near the restroom. "Can you believe she wore that polyester pantsuit? And that accent when she talks about her hospital stories. So tacky. I don't know how my Abigail will handle having her as a mother-in-law." I quietly stepped back around the corner, heart pounding in my chest. Was this how they all saw me? Was this how my son saw me now? The wedding day arrived, and I wore the nicest dress I could afford, a simple navy blue sheath I'd saved 3 months to buy. During photos, Patricia positioned herself prominently next to Tyler, while I was placed at the edge of group shots. Several times the photographer had to ask me to step in closer because I'd been gradually nudged out of frame. At the reception, I watched Tyler laughing and chatting with Patricia's country club friends, adopting the same mannerisms and speech patterns they used. He barely stopped by my table all evening. Then came the announcement for the mother-son dance. I stood up, smoothing my dress nervously. Tyler stepped onto the dance floor and extended his hand to Patricia. They glided across the floor while I stood frozen, half risen from my chair, as other guests awkwardly avoided eye contact with me. When the song ended, Tyler finally remembered me and hurried over. "Sorry, Mom. Patricia and I practiced a routine. We'll dance to the next song, okay?" But the DJ moved on to fast group dances, and my dance with my son never happened. After the wedding, Tyler and Abigail moved into a condo purchased by her parents as a wedding gift. I sent a housewarming package with homemade cookies and a quilt I'd spent months making, along with a card containing the $1,000 I'd saved for them. 2 weeks later, I got a brief text. "Thanks for the gifts. Been busy settling in. Talk soon." Weeks turned into months, and our communication dwindled to occasional texts and stilted phone calls that rarely lasted more than 5 minutes. When I suggested visiting their new place, there was always an excuse. They were renovating, they had plans, Abigail's parents were in town. Meanwhile, Tyler's social media was filled with photos of dinners and weekends with the Harrises, Abigail's family. There they were at the Harrises' lake house, at exclusive restaurants, at charity galas, where Patricia proudly introduced Tyler as practically my son. Each image was a fresh wound, a reminder of how easily I'd been replaced. When Christmas approached, I hoped we'd spend it together, as we always had. Tyler called the week before. "Mom, about Christmas. Abigail and I are going to her parents' ski lodge in Vermont. It's tradition for them." "Oh," I said, trying to keep disappointment from my voice. "Maybe the day before or after. We're leaving the 23rd and won't be back until January 2nd. I'll call you from there, okay?" Patricia's invited some of her friends who might be helpful for my career. I spent Christmas alone for the first time in 30 years, watching old movies and trying not to think about my son skiing with his new family. The call from Vermont lasted 3 minutes, with noise in the background and Tyler clearly distracted. In February, I received an invitation to a dinner at the Harrises' home. Hope flared that this might be a chance to reconnect with Tyler and perhaps build a better relationship with his in-laws. I bought a new blouse and had my hair done specially. The dinner was for 20 people, mostly Patricia's friends. I was seated at the opposite end of the table from Tyler and barely spoke with him all evening. After dinner, Patricia clinked her glass for attention. "We have wonderful news to share," she announced. "Tyler has been accepted into the master's program in business administration at State University." Everyone applauded while I sat in shock. This was the first I'd heard of Tyler applying for graduate school. When I caught his eye across the table, he had the grace to look slightly ashamed. Later, I managed to pull him aside. "Why didn't you tell me you were applying for your master's?" "It happened quickly," he said, not meeting my eyes. "Patricia has connections on the alumni board. She helped expedite my application." "I would have liked to know," I said softly. "I'm proud of you, but finding out with everyone else." "Mom, please don't make a scene," Tyler whispered, glancing around nervously. "We can talk about this later." But later never seemed to come. Throughout his 18-month master's program, I saw Tyler only a handful of times, usually at large gatherings hosted by the Harrises, where we barely spoke. Patricia regularly posted photos of herself attending Tyler's business school events, proudly captioned, "Supporting my brilliant son." I learned about Tyler's achievements through social media rather than from him directly. Each exclusion hurt more than the last, but I told myself that as long as he was happy and successful, I could bear the pain. When Tyler announced his upcoming graduation from the master's program, I was determined to be part of this milestone. I immediately requested the day off from my volunteer position at the community clinic where I worked since retirement. I spent months saving for a special graduation gift for Tyler, a watch that reminded me of one my father had owned. I thought it might help Tyler remember his roots, his history beyond the Harrises' influence. What Tyler didn't know was that I had been volunteering at State University for the past year. After retirement, I found I missed being around people and making a difference. The university had a program where community volunteers helped underprivileged students navigate college life, providing everything from academic guidance to emotional support. Many of these students reminded me of myself years ago, struggling to balance education with survival. Some were single parents like I had been, attending classes while raising children. I found deep fulfillment in helping them persist when they felt like giving up. I never mentioned my volunteer work to Tyler. Our conversations were so infrequent and superficial that it never came up. Besides, something held me back from sharing this part of my life with him. A protective instinct, perhaps, preserving something that was just mine. As graduation approached, I called Tyler to discuss arrangements for the day. I thought we could have breakfast before the ceremony, I suggested. I'd love to meet some of your professors. There was a pause on the line. Actually, Mom, we're having breakfast with the Harrises. Patricia arranged for us to meet the dean beforehand. Oh, well, I could join you all. It's a small gathering, Tyler said quickly. Very exclusive, but I'll save you a seat at the ceremony. The night before graduation, Tyler called with what he called logistical details. Mom, about tomorrow. It's going to be pretty formal. The Harrises are bringing some important business contacts. I bought a new dress, I assured him. Dark green, very simple. Great. Just maybe don't wear anything too flashy. And when we introduce you, maybe don't tell the hospital stories. Some of them are a bit graphic. I felt my throat tighten. I know how to behave in public, Tyler. Of course, Mom. Just want everything to go smoothly. Oh, and Patricia asked if you're planning to bring anyone. She's finalizing the dinner reservations for after. It's just me, I said, the words heavy in my mouth. Right. Well, see you tomorrow then. I hung up and looked at my reflection in the mirror, wondering when I had become someone my son needed to apologize for in advance. Graduation day dawned bright and clear. I woke up at 5 a.m, too anxious to sleep. I laid out my new dress, simple but elegant, and the pearl earrings that had belonged to my grandmother. I wrapped Tyler's watch gift carefully, adding a card in which I'd written how proud I was of all he had accomplished. The drive to campus took 45 minutes. I arrived 2 hours early, hoping to see Tyler before the ceremony and have at least a few moments alone with him. The campus was already bustling with excited graduates and their families. I texted Tyler to let him know I had arrived. In a meeting with the dean and Patricia. We'll see you after. I swallowed my disappointment and decided to visit the community outreach office where I volunteered. Several of the students I mentored were graduating today as well, and I wanted to wish them luck. Susan, the program coordinator, greeted me with a hug. Cher, I thought you'd be with your son. He's busy with his in-laws, I explained, trying to keep my tone neutral. I'll see him after. Susan gave me a sympathetic look. Well, his loss is our gain. Some of your students are here and would love to see you. For the next hour, I congratulated the students I'd mentored, taking photos and sharing in their excitement. Their gratitude was overwhelming. One young woman, Jasmine, a single mother of 2 who had just completed her nursing degree, hugged me tightly. I wouldn't be here without you, Miss Cher. When I wanted to quit after my babysitter bailed during finals week, you were the one who watched my kids so I could take my exams. I'll never forget that. These moments warmed my heart, temporarily easing the pain of Tyler's distance. At 30 minutes before the ceremony, I made my way to the main quadrangle where graduates were gathering with their families. I spotted Tyler immediately, resplendent in his cap and gown, surrounded by a group of well-dressed people. Abigail was adjusting his tassel, while Patricia orchestrated photos, her commanding voice carrying across the lawn. I approached hesitantly, clutching my purse with the gift inside. Tyler saw me and broke away from the group. "Mom, you made it," he said, giving me a quick, perfunctory hug. "I wouldn't miss it," I replied, drinking in the sight of him. Despite everything, my heart swelled with pride. "You look so handsome." Before he could respond, Patricia swooped in. "Tyler, darling, Dean Blackwell wants another photo with you and Abigail. Oh, hello, Cher," she added as an afterthought. "Hello, Patricia. Lovely to see you." Patricia was wearing what looked like a designer suit in a deep burgundy with gold jewelry that caught the sunlight. Next to her, I felt plain despite my new dress. "We need to line up soon," Tyler said, glancing at his watch. "The graduates enter first, then family. I saved you a seat with us. I said, remembering his promise. Tyler's expression changed, discomfort flickering across his features. He pulled me slightly aside, lowering his voice. "Mom, about the seating. I've asked Patricia to walk in with me for the family procession." "What? But I'm your mother." "I know, but Patricia helped me get into this program, and she's connected to a lot of people here." He hesitated, then the words came out in a rush. "Mom, you embarrass me." I stared at him, certain I had misheard. "I embarrass you?" "Not you personally, just. You don't know how to act in these circles. Last time you met my professor, you told that story about the emergency room patient with the remote control. It was inappropriate. Each word was a physical blow. I struggled to breathe, to comprehend that my son, the center of my world for 30 years, was ashamed of me. "Where should I sit, then?" I managed to ask. "There's general seating in the back," he said, not meeting my eyes. "I'll find you after, okay?" Before I could respond, he was called back to the group. I watched as he straightened his shoulders and rejoined them, instantly transforming into the person they wanted him to be, laughing at Patricia's joke as if our conversation had never happened. In a daze, I made my way to the general seating area, taking a spot in the back row. From there, I watched as the graduates assembled and the families of honor were seated. Tyler and Patricia walked arm in arm down the center aisle to the front row, her burgundy suit a perfect complement to his graduation robes. Everyone applauded their entrance while I sat silent, the gift heavy in my lap. The ceremony began with speeches from university officials. I barely heard them through the roaring in my ears, the echo of Tyler's words. "You embarrass me. After everything, after the double shifts and the sacrificed weekends, after selling every valuable thing I owned to give him opportunities, after holding him through nightmares and nursing him through illnesses and celebrating every small victory of his life, I embarrassed him. I considered leaving. What was the point of staying where I was so clearly unwanted? But something kept me in my seat, some stubborn core of myself that refused to be erased. As the dean took the podium to begin conferring degrees, an usher approached my row, scanning the seats. His eyes landed on me. "Are you Cher Wilson?" he whispered. Startled, I nodded. "Please come with me immediately. You're needed backstage." Confused and slightly alarmed, I followed the usher through a side door and down a corridor lined with photographs of distinguished alumni. What could this be about? Had something happened to Tyler? The usher led me to a room behind the main stage, where several people in academic regalia were gathered. A tall man with silver hair stepped forward. "Miss Wilson, I'm President Hargrove. Thank you for joining us." I shook his hand automatically, bewildered. There must be some mistake. "I'm just here for my son's graduation." "There's no mistake," said a woman I recognized as Dean Winters from the Community Outreach Program. "We've been hoping to speak with you before the ceremony." "I don't understand." President Hargrove smiled warmly. "Miss Wilson, are you aware of the impact your work has had on our university community?" I blinked, still confused. "I just volunteer a few days a week." Dean Winters laughed softly. "A few days that have transformed our outreach program. Your mentorship has resulted in our highest retention rate for at-risk students in university history. Not to mention your financial contributions," added President Hargrove. I froze. No one was supposed to know about that. After retirement, I had decided to use most of my modest savings to establish a scholarship fund for students who were single parents. I had done it anonymously, not wanting recognition. "How did you?" "Bank errors happen," President Hargrove said gently. "Your banker is an alumnus and recognized your name when processing the paperwork. He didn't reveal the amount, just confirmed you were our anonymous donor when we suspected. I felt exposed, vulnerable. It wasn't much. It was enough to help 15 students complete their degrees who would have dropped out otherwise, Dean Winters said. And your personal mentorship has been invaluable. I shook my head, uncomfortable with their praise. I should get back to the ceremony. My son. That's why we called you here, President Hargrove said. The faculty, Senate, and Board of Trustees have unanimously voted to award you an honorary doctorate in humanitarianism today. The room seemed to tilt. What? Your dedication to education, both through your financial support and personal mentorship, exemplifies the highest values of our institution, he continued. We would be honored if you would accept this recognition. My mind whirled. An honorary doctorate? Me? The woman who had just been relegated to the back row by her own son? I don't know what to say, I managed. Say yes, urged Dean Winters. Your story inspires us all, Cher. A single mother who put her son through college while earning her own degree at night, who then devoted her retirement to helping others achieve the same dream. I hesitated, thinking of Tyler sitting in the front row with Patricia. Would this embarrass him further? Would he be angry at me for drawing attention? As I stood there uncertain, the door opened and several students entered. I recognized them immediately. Jasmine, the nursing student, Marcus, who was graduating with honors in engineering, Tanya, who had balanced chemistry studies with caring for her younger siblings after their parents' accident. Miss Chair, Jasmine said, stepping forward. We heard they were giving you this award. Please say yes. You deserve it more than anyone, added Marcus. Without your help, I'd have lost my scholarship after my mother got sick. Tanya joined in. We actually requested this. All of us wrote letters to the board about what you've done for us. Looking at their earnest faces, I felt something shift inside me. For years, I had defined myself solely as Tyler's mother, measuring my worth by his approval. But standing here, I realized I had become something more without even noticing it. These students saw value in me that had nothing to do with whose mother I was. If you accept, President Hargrove said, your name will be called during the special recognitions portion of the ceremony after the graduates receive their degrees. I took a deep breath, straightened my shoulders, and nodded. I would be honored to accept. While a staff member briefed me on the procedure, fitting me with a doctoral hood and showing me where to stand, my mind raced with a mixture of emotions. Pride in this unexpected recognition warred with anxiety about Tyler's reaction. Would this make things worse between us? But looking at the students who had advocated for me, I found a new resolve. I had spent decades putting Tyler's feelings and needs above my own. Today, just this once, I would allow myself this moment of recognition. The staff member guided me to a position backstage where I could see the main ceremony through a gap in the curtains. I watched as graduates crossed the stage one by one, including Tyler, who accepted his master's degree with a confident stride and broad smile. The audience applauded, with Patricia's voice audible above the rest, shouting, "That's my boy!" After all the degrees had been conferred, President Hargrove approached the podium again. Before we conclude today's ceremony, we have a special presentation to make. Each year, the university recognizes individuals who have made exceptional contributions to our community and exemplify the values of service and dedication we hope to instill in all our graduates. I felt my heartbeat accelerate as he continued. Today, we honor someone whose quiet generosity has transformed countless lives at this institution. Someone who never sought recognition or praise, but whose impact will be felt for generations to come. From my vantage point, I could see Tyler in the front row, scrolling through his phone, not paying attention. Patricia was whispering something to Abigail, both looking bored now that Tyler had received his degree. This individual began her relationship with State University as a parent, working double shifts as a nurse to put her son through college. While doing so, she completed her own bachelor's degree through night classes, often studying in hospital break rooms between shifts. Now Tyler's head snapped up, his expression confused. Patricia stopped mid-whisper. After retirement, instead of resting, she devoted herself to mentoring students who faced challenges similar to her own. She established an anonymous scholarship fund that has supported 15 students to date, many of whom are graduating today. The crowd was completely silent now, listening intently. Beyond financial support, this remarkable woman has given countless hours as a mentor, tutor, and sometimes simply a supportive presence for students on the verge of giving up. She has driven students to exams when their cars broke down, babysat their children during finals week, and stood by them when no one else would. I saw Tyler scanning the stage, his brow furrowed as he tried to connect these descriptions to someone he knew. Her donations have been sufficient not only to fund scholarships, but also to establish a new student support center, which the board has unanimously voted to name in her honor. A murmur ran through the crowd. Patricia was now sitting up straight, her expression alert and calculating. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my great privilege to present this honorary doctorate in humanitarianism to Miss Cher Wilson. As I stepped onto the stage, the audience erupted into applause. Through the bright lights, I could see Tyler's face, his expression a mixture of shock and disbelief. Patricia sat frozen beside him, her mouth slightly open. Abigail was whispering urgently in Tyler's ear. President Hargrove placed the honorary doctoral hood over my shoulders and handed me a framed certificate. Dean Winters stepped forward with a bouquet of flowers. The applause continued, with many people rising to their feet. President Hargrove gestured to the microphone, inviting me to speak. I hadn't prepared anything, had never expected to be in this position. But as I looked out at the sea of faces, words came to me. "Thank you for this unexpected honor," I began, my voice steadier than I felt. "I accept it on behalf of all the single parents who sacrifice daily for their children's future, and all the students who persevere despite obstacles that would defeat many of us." From the corner of my eye, I could see Tyler staring up at me, his expression unreadable. Education has always been precious to me, both as a means of improving one's circumstances and as a way to grow as a human being. I believe that the true value of education lies not in the status it confers, but in how it expands our capacity to contribute to others' well-being. Now Patricia was tugging at Tyler's sleeve, but he shook her off, his eyes fixed on me. When I was raising my son, working nights and studying whenever I could find a moment, I never imagined standing here today. I did what I did out of love, not expectation of recognition. I paused, looking directly at Tyler for the first time. I've learned that true dignity doesn't come from impressing others or fitting into a certain circle. It comes from living authentically and treating everyone with respect, regardless of their status or background. I could see my words landing with Tyler, his face paling slightly. To the graduates today, as you leave this university and build your lives, I hope you'll remember that your worth isn't determined by the approval of others, but by the integrity with which you live and the kindness you show, especially to those who can offer you nothing in return. As I finished speaking, the audience rose in a standing ovation. Among the first to stand were the students I had mentored, cheering and wiping away tears. Gradually, everyone joined them, the applause echoing through the auditorium. Everyone except Tyler and the Harrises, who remained seated, looking utterly stunned. After the ceremony concluded, I was surrounded by well-wishers. Students I had mentored brought their families to meet me. Faculty members I had never met approached to express their appreciation for my contributions to the university community. Through the crowd, I caught glimpses of Tyler standing awkwardly with the Harrises. Patricia appeared to be speaking intensely to him, her gestures animated. Abigail looked uncomfortable, glancing repeatedly in my direction. Dean Winters appeared at my side. There's a small reception for honorary degree recipients in the President's Garden. Would you like to attend? Part of me wanted to decline, to seek out Tyler and try to understand his reaction. But another part, the part that had been silenced and sidelined for too long, wanted to savor this moment of recognition. I'd be delighted, I replied. As Dean Winters led me toward the garden, we passed near where Tyler was standing. Our eyes met briefly. He took a half step toward me, then hesitated as Patricia placed a restraining hand on his arm. I continued walking, my new doctoral hood flowing behind me. The President's Garden was beautiful, with flowering trees and carefully tended beds surrounding a stone patio. Faculty members and distinguished guests mingled, sipping champagne and enjoying hors d'oeuvre. President Hargrove introduced me to several major donors and alumni. Cher's contributions may seem modest compared to some, he told one elderly alumnus, but the personal touch she brings makes her impact extraordinary. Money can build buildings, but it takes someone like Cher to build people. I was midway through a conversation with the chair of the nursing department when I noticed a stir at the garden entrance. Tyler had arrived, alone, looking uncertain and out of place. "Excuse me," I said to the department chair. "My son has just arrived." I crossed the garden to where Tyler stood, conscious of curious eyes following me. Up close, I could see that his face was pale, his expression troubled. "Congratulations, Dr. Wilson," he said formally, as if speaking to a stranger. "Thank you, Tyler." An awkward silence fell between us, 30 years of love and sacrifice compressed into this strange, strained moment. "Why didn't you tell me?" he finally asked. "About the scholarships, the volunteering, all of it." I considered the question carefully. Would it have mattered? "You seem to have formed your opinion of me already." He flinched as if I'd struck him. "That's not fair, isn't it? You've made it very clear how you feel about being associated with me in public." Tyler glanced around, noticing the attention we were attracting. "Can we talk somewhere private?" I nodded and led him to a quiet corner of the garden, beneath a flowering dogwood tree. We sat on a stone bench, leaving careful space between us. "I didn't know," Tyler began, "about any of it. The scholarships, the mentoring, even your bachelor's degree. Why keep it all secret?" "It wasn't a secret, Tyler. It just wasn't something I announced at every opportunity. You never asked about my life, what I did when I wasn't working or taking care of you." He looked down at his hands. "I guess I never thought about it." "No, you didn't." Another silence stretched between us, filled with all the things we had never said to each other. After the ceremony, Tyler said slowly, "Professor Adler came up to me. He said he's been trying to tell me for months what an extraordinary woman my mother is, that several faculty members have been disturbed by how I talk about you." This was news to me. "What do you mean?" "Apparently, my professors know all about you. They see you on campus, working with students. They hear about the difference you make, and then they hear me, dismissing you, being embarrassed by you." Shame colored his face as he continued. "Professor Jenkins actually took me aside once and said I should be proud to be your son, not the other way around. I thought he was just being politically correct or something. I didn't realize he actually knew you, that you'd helped his daughter when she was struggling as a single mother in the chemistry program. I remembered Allison Jenkins well, a brilliant young woman determined to complete her degree despite having a toddler and no family support. I had never connected her to Professor Jenkins. The faculty has known all along who I am? Tyler nodded miserably. Apparently everyone knows except me. God, Mom, how could I have been so blind, so stupidly focused on impressing people like Patricia, that I couldn't see what was right in front of me? I felt a complex mixture of emotions: vindication, sorrow, hope, anger. Tyler, for years you've been pulling away from me, acting as if I'm something to be ashamed of. Do you have any idea how much that hurt? I'm starting to, he said quietly. When the president described all you've done, all you've been through, and I realized he was talking about you. I've never felt so small in my life. Tears welled in his eyes, and suddenly I could see in this grown man the little boy who had once skinned his knee and run to me for comfort. My anger softened, not disappearing, but making room for compassion. What happened to us, Tyler? When did you start seeing me as someone to be embarrassed about? He wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. I don't know. Maybe when I met Abigail and saw how her family lived. Everything about them seemed so perfect, so polished. Their house, their clothes, the way they talked. Next to them, our life seemed shabby. Our life was never shabby, I said firmly. We may not have had much money, but we had love and integrity and grit. Those things matter more than polish. I know that now, Tyler said. Or I'm starting to remember it. Being around the Harrises, I got caught up in appearances, in status. I forgot what really matters. He looked at me directly for the first time. When I saw you on that stage, being honored for actually making a difference in people's lives while I've been chasing approval from people like Patricia, I felt ashamed. Not of you, of myself. It was what I had wanted to hear for so long, yet the moment felt bittersweet. Where's Patricia now? And Abigail? Tyler grimaced. Patricia is furious. When they announced your honorary degree, she kept saying there must be some mistake, that they must have confused you with someone else. She couldn't believe they'd honor someone like you over someone like her, with all her committee work and country club fundraisers. Despite everything, I had to suppress a smile at this. Abigail is conflicted, Tyler continued. After the ceremony, she pulled me aside and said she's never seen her mother so upset. But then she admitted that she's always thought I was unfair to you, that she's uncomfortable with how her family treats you. This surprised me. Abigail had always seemed to follow her mother's lead in all things. She's waiting for me at the car, Tyler added. She thought we needed to talk alone first. I nodded, appreciating this small consideration. Mom, Tyler said, his voice breaking slightly, I don't expect you to forgive me right away. What I did today, asking Patricia to take your place, telling you that you embarrass me, it was unforgivable. Nothing is unforgivable between a mother and her child, I said softly. But forgiveness doesn't mean there are no consequences. Trust, once broken, takes time to rebuild. I know. I want to try, if you'll let me. I want to be the son you deserve. I reached out and took his hand, this child of my heart who had wounded me so deeply, yet whom I loved beyond measure. That's a start. The week after graduation was a period of cautious rebuilding. Tyler called me every day, sometimes just to check in, other times to have longer conversations where we tentatively explored the distance that had grown between us. On Thursday evening, my doorbell rang unexpectedly. When I opened the door, Tyler stood there with Abigail, both looking nervous. "We brought dinner," Tyler said, holding up a bag from my favorite local restaurant. "If that's okay." "Of course," I said, stepping aside to let them in. "This is a nice surprise." Abigail handed me a bouquet of daisies, my favorite flowers, though I couldn't remember telling her that. "These are from me," she said softly, and an apology. "I should have stood up to my mother about how she treats you. I'm sorry." The simple sincerity in her voice touched me. Perhaps I had misjudged her, seeing only her connection to Patricia and missing the person she actually was. As we set out the food, Tyler cleared his throat. "There's something else we wanted to tell you. Abigail and I have been doing a lot of talking since graduation." Abigail nodded. "What happened made us realize we've been living according to my mother's expectations, not our own values. We've decided to make some changes," Tyler continued. "First, we're turning down the job at Abigail's father's firm. It's not what I really want to do." This was a significant shift. Tyler had talked about this prestigious position for months, how it would set him up for success, how lucky he was that Patricia had arranged it. "What will you do instead?" I asked. "I've been offered a position with a nonprofit that helps low-income families navigate healthcare systems and access resources," Tyler explained. "The pay is a lot less, but the work matters. It would mean helping people like you helped me." Something warm unfurled in my chest. This sounded like the compassionate boy I had raised, not the status-conscious young man he had become. "And we're looking for our own place," Abigail added. "Somewhere we can afford on our own, without my parents' help." "That's a big change," I observed. "How does Patricia feel about all this?" They exchanged glances. "She's not speaking to us at the moment," Tyler admitted. "She says we're being foolish and ungrateful." "It's hard," Abigail said. "I love my parents, but I need to live my own life, not the one my mother has scripted for me." "Seeing how you raised Tyler to be independent, to think for himself even though he temporarily lost his way, it made me realize what I'm missing." We talked long into the evening, sharing stories and beginning to build something new, something based on honesty and mutual respect rather than expectations and appearances. Over the following months, these changes proved to be more than just talk. Tyler and Abigail found a modest apartment in a diverse neighborhood near the nonprofit where Tyler now worked. Abigail took a teaching position at a public elementary school, discovering a passion for education she hadn't known she possessed. Patricia maintained her distance, occasionally sending cutting messages about their phase of slumming it, but Todd, Abigail's father, surprised everyone by expressing quiet support for their choices. "He came to visit us without Mom," Abigail told me over coffee one morning, "said he respects us for making our own way. I think he's been living by my mother's rules for so long, he's a little envious of our courage." 6 months after graduation, Tyler invited me to a special dinner at their apartment. When I arrived, he and Abigail were waiting with excited expressions. "We have something to tell you," Tyler said, taking Abigail's hand. "We're going to have a baby." Joy bubbled up inside me. "A baby? Oh, that's wonderful news." "There's more," Abigail said. "We want you to be a real part of this child's life, not just on holidays or special occasions. We were hoping you might consider watching the baby a couple days a week after your volunteer work, once I go back to teaching." The trust implied in this request moved me deeply. I would be honored. "And," Tyler added, "we've decided to name the baby after you if it's a girl, if that's okay." Tears sprang to my eyes. More than okay. 2 weeks later, we faced another milestone, a family dinner that would include Patricia and Todd for the first time since Tyler and Abigail's life changes. The dinner had been Todd's idea, an attempt to begin healing the family rift. I offered to bow out, not wanting to complicate an already tense situation, but Tyler was adamant. "Your family," he said firmly. "If they can't accept that, that's their problem." The evening began awkwardly, with Patricia making pointed comments about the size of their apartment and their quaint lifestyle. I kept quiet, letting Tyler and Abigail handle the situation in their own way. To everyone's surprise, it was Todd who finally addressed the elephant in the room. "Patricia," he said, after one particularly cutting remark, "our daughter and son-in-law are happy. They're building a life based on values, not appearances. Maybe it's time we considered whether we could learn something from them." Patricia looked stunned. "What are you saying, Todd?" "I'm saying I'm proud of them," he replied. "And I think Cher has done an extraordinary job raising a son who could find his way back to what matters, even after losing his way for a while." Patricia opened her mouth to retort, then closed it again, looking around the table as if seeing us all for the first time. Something in her expression shifted subtly. "The baby will need grandparents who get along," she said finally. "Not quite an apology, but perhaps the beginning of one." "Yes," I agreed, meeting her eyes. "The baby deserves that." As we shared dessert, conversation gradually became more natural. Patricia would never be a warm person, but there was a new note of respect in how she addressed me. It wasn't friendship, but it was a start. Later, as Tyler walked me to my car, he paused under the streetlight. "I never properly thanked you," he said. "For what?" "For everything. For working those double shifts. For selling your things to pay for my opportunities. For never giving up on me, even when I was at my worst." I squeezed his hand. "That's what mothers do." "Not all mothers," he said softly. I got lucky. Looking at this man who had found his way back to his true self, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. The pain of rejection hadn't disappeared entirely, but it had been transformed into something else, a deeper appreciation for the resilience of love, the possibility of growth and change. Now, a year later, as I rock my granddaughter, little Cheryl, to sleep in the nursery Tyler and Abigail prepared in their apartment, I reflect on the journey that brought us here. The honorary doctorate hangs on my wall, a reminder not of status, but of the difference one ordinary life can make when lived with purpose and integrity. Tyler has created a new tradition at family gatherings, always beginning by offering a toast to me, acknowledging the foundation I provided for him. Patricia still struggles sometimes with our different values, but she's learning, slowly, that status and appearance aren't the measure of a life well lived. As for me, I've learned that while forgiveness is essential, so is standing firm in your own worth. I no longer shrink to make others comfortable. I speak with the authority I've earned through living authentically and serving others. My voice matters not because of any title or recognition, but because of the wisdom gathered through years of quiet perseverance. Little Cheryl stirs in my arms, her tiny hand gripping my finger. In her face, I see echoes of Tyler as a baby, and perhaps a bit of myself as well. What matters isn't what others think of us, but the legacy of love and integrity we pass on, generation to generation. Have you ever had to stand up for your own worth when others couldn't see your value, or found yourself reconnecting with someone after painful misunderstandings pulled you apart? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. And if this story touched you, please consider liking, subscribing, and sharing it with someone who might need a reminder of their own quiet dignity and worth. Thank you for listening, and may you always know your true value, regardless of whether others can see it.